Hello, happy Monday. Welcome to episode 2, Divorced Done Well. We're back. We came back for another week.
Better than ever.
Right, better than ever. We did want to remind you guys that we are live on Facebook. So if you want to submit questions or comments while we are live, feel free to do that. And we may try to answer if we can figure it out, but
Ziggy's doing that right now.
right.
No promises, but if you do post things, because even if we can't figure it out today, if you post questions or comments or things you want to know about, then each week we'll try to address them.
Yeah.
So today's show, a lot of the feedback we got great feedback.
We
last
did.
week.
Thanks, everybody. We really got a lot of comments and questions. And so we are going to address a lot of, what people sent via email or via Facebook. I think people wanted to know about some background because we just kind of said, hi, here we are, we're divorced. But I
think we expected about 4 people to watch, and all be people we knew. So thank you to everybody we don't know who watched, and we're still. If you can't tell, we have a thing here that tells us who's supposed to speak when, but we're still trying to figure that out. So Stephanie took my section.
Oh, sorry.
See where it says Steph?
Okay, sorry.
Where it says Eric?
I'm
So where
sorry.
it says Eric, that's
Okay, your
me.
turn. You go.
Okay, so like Stephanie said, a lot of the feedback we got was, you're sort of expecting that we know who you are, and so we'll spend a little bit of time today kind of telling you who we are, because I think that's germane to how we got here. So first thing I want to say is, some of the feedback we got was that, your situation is a little unique, that, not everybody is here. And we get that. That's sort of the point. We know, and we sort of talked about that last week, our experience is that this is not necessarily normal. And there are reasons why, people go through different things, and people have different experiences, and that's fine. And there are probably people who, the advice we give or the description of our experiences are going to be different for other people. They're going to be different, and probably maybe not the best advice for people who are going through different things than we are. So all we want to say is that, we're not the experts. We're not therapists. If what we're saying doesn't speak to you, then, by all means, don't follow it. But if it does, if some of the things we say are things you can, take from, then, again, by all means, do it. So
not to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt. We're not. We don't set the bar. We're not setting the bar of this is how it's supposed to be. This is the last thing I'm going to say about it. But we're not setting the bar on how it has to be, because again, you have to be dealing with 2 relatively rational people, and we all know that's not always the case. So
it's not even always the case with us.
Oh no. Last week when we drove home together, we got in a little argument, a little tiff about, what we're going to discuss and what order. And it's not perfect. We still regularly get in little arguments. So just want to share that. Immediately when we got in the car last week, there was words.
There was words.
Yeah.
Might have been some tears.
Right, there might have been some tears.
But we worked through it.
Right.
And that's kind of the key, right? Like, we worked through it a lot faster than we did probably 2 years ago, probably
Right.
a year ago,
Right.
certainly 3-4 years ago.
For sure.
That would have lasted
Days. Yes.
This time it lasted, 15 minutes. Again, just perspective. Okay, we're going to move on from that, from all the caveats. So, wait, so.
Yeah, so I'm going to just
you go.
provide a little bit of background on how we met. We met, gosh, this is going to age us. So we met my freshman year of college at the University of Texas. So that's 1992. Eric was a cool senior and I was a freshman. So we met in college and we dated, you know, on and off. He went to law school at the University of Miami, so we did the long distance thing. And then we both moved back to Dallas.
You moved in 1990.
Right, I moved in 1996, and then Eric moved back here in 1997. So we dated for, what, 7 years?
On and off.
On and off, before we got engaged. And, you know, that's what we thought we were supposed to do. I mean, obviously, we cared and loved each other in a way that we knew that's what it was supposed to look
Well,
like. But the
and-
next step was, I guess, to get engaged. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and also, you know, by that point, that was we got engaged in 1999. By that point, all of your friends had gotten engaged and married.
Yes.
So we were like some of the last ones, and so I think that there was this added pressure,
For sure.
right? Like we waited a long time, and you know, then you start getting the questions, why did you wait so long? And so by that point, it was like, damn, we better get married because that's the expectation.
Right.
Everybody's already married. Some people are already started having kids. And so it was like, get married. It's like, you know, shit or get off the pot. I don't know how many times I heard that. And so we did what we thought was expected.
Yeah. And, you know, I can speak for myself. You know, I grew up in a family where my parents got divorced when I was 13, which is I think every age is a hard age, but I think when you're going through puberty, that's a really hard age. And so I didn't really have an idea of what a proper marriage was supposed to look like. Like, I didn't really have a model for that. So I created this whole fantasy in my head about what an ideal marriage is supposed to look like. And you're supposed to date, and then you're supposed to get engaged, and then you get married, and you have kids, and you live happily ever after. So we got engaged. We were married in 2000, and we started kind of trying to have kids about 2 or 3 years into marriage, and it wasn't as easy, I think, as we thought it was going to be. But we ended up having 2 kids, and we were married. Eric's going to provide a little bit more feedback about the kid thing, but we were actually, today would have been our 19th year anniversary. So that's
19, yeah.
Right?
19, yep.
a little awkward. Not really. Happy anniversary. Happy would-be anniversary. So anyway, we just, again, sort of went through the motions of what we thought was supposed to happen. However, in my mind, well, I thought it was supposed to look this way. Well, why isn't he reacting this way? Or why isn't he doing this? I never actually told him these things. I just expected him to know. So I stood on this side and he stood on this side, and I was a little bit of a victim for sure. I just assumed he was supposed to know all these things, but how's someone supposed to know if you don't communicate with them?
But I think even beyond that, you know, because I didn't, you know, my parents are still together, but just because that's the case, that doesn't give you a roadmap.
You're right.
And so I think we both had this idealized notion of what marriage is supposed to look like, and then when it doesn't fit that pattern, then I think it's natural to start wondering, well, am I doing something wrong?
Right.
Are we doing something wrong? You know, why does everybody else seem so happy and in this state of bliss, and they're having these children, and you know, this was pre-Facebook, but you know, they're going on trips and everybody's just so blissfully happy. Why are we not like that?
Right.
And so the doubt, I think, starts to creep in, and then once that happens, it's kind of hard to turn the boat around.
Yeah, and I think you start to check out. You start to check out, you start to try to find joy in other things. And when you've checked out of the relationship, I think sometimes it's hard to come back. And I think that's what happened for both of us. And I think ultimately that's why we ended up agreeing to split. But I think there are things that added to that also. Like, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the fertility that we struggled with that, again, people don't really talk about.
Yeah, I think there's stressors. So being married already, I think, it can be a stressful thing, just because you are now, we're all, I think, pretty selfish human beings, and we spend 22, 25 years of our life trying to make ourselves happy, and then you get married and you realize, man, you've got to make not only yourself happy, but somebody else happy. And that's tough. And then, so that's one stressor. And then it's, if you want to have kids, it's, well, let's start having kids. And, again, I think we both thought, well, we'll just start trying to have kids and we'll pop one out, and then 2 years later we'll have another one, and no problem. And again, didn't work like that. We got Stephanie, I think we bought our house in 2003, 3 years after we got married, and we bought a house, 2 blocks from the elementary school, across the street from the junior high, and we thought, well, we'll just start having kids, and it'll
Again, the fantasy.
The
Again,
fantasy.
the fantasy of idea of like how we thought it was supposed to work. And then again, life doesn't work that way.
Yeah, so
You know?
Eli, Stephanie had 2 miscarriages, finally got pregnant without.
We did a little acupuncture, and I'm convinced that worked. But
Yeah, acupuncture, but beyond that, no drugs or, IVF or anything, and got pregnant with Eli in 2005, had him in December of 2005.
But as a result of having all those miscarriages, I was really stressed, and it was hard.
It was a hard pregnancy
It was a
because
hard.
you weren't really, after going through 2 miscarriages, you're on guard.
Yeah.
We were on guard for the entire 9 months.
Yeah, so
10
that's a
months.
stress. That's a stress.
That's a major stressor. We were actually fine during that time, but we weren't happy. I mean, you couldn't be happy. A lot of people have these, they go on baby moons and they have parties.
Set up
and
the room.
Set up the room, and we were
Petrified
to do that. We didn't want to, jinx anything. So I don't even know if we picked a name until
I know.
a month before.
Well, because I think your mom was like, "You guys are having a baby in a month."
Well,
Like,
also the OB-GYN said that.
Yeah.
She's like, you have to start
yeah,
preparing for
Right.
having a baby. But that was just a really stressful time. Hard to come back from that. But we had Eli, he was healthy. Oh, also, I don't know if you remember, but we were told at his 20th week
Yes.
that he may have a club foot, right? And a club foot is a marker for
Down.
apparently other things,
Right.
Down syndrome, other things. And so I kind of forgot about that until right now. That was another, it wasn't just a stressful pregnancy. It was, oh my God, what are we going to be dealing with
Right.
in December? And he came out and he was fine. I mean, fine. For those of you who know Eli, he's still crazy, but
He's fine.
physically and mentally and all that, he's fine. But again, that was just a really
Yeah.
stressful 10
Yeah.
months. It was not filled with joy like most people's. But it's fine. We wanted to get pregnant again. We wanted to give him a brother or sister. So a couple years later, we started trying again for number 2. And that time it just couldn't get pregnant. So we went
fertility. What
fertility
they call it,
specialist.
secondary infertility. So we went to a fertility specialist. Started giving myself shots.
I think I did it. I think I gave you the shots.
No,
I feel like I did.
no shots. He wouldn't. He's afraid of needles.
I feel like I did, and I'm going to go with
Okay.
that. But finally, we got pregnant with Sadie. Sadie was born in April 2008. So she's 11. Both, healthy pregnancies, everything good, healthy kids. But again, that was stressful too because, it was doing the IUI thing. It was, are there going to be enough eggs? And what if we can't have a second
And then everything
kid?
was timed,
Right.
like you can't just spontaneously say, let's go make a baby. It's 10 o'clock and I'm ovulating, so can you come home from work? It kind of takes the fun out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of another added. So anyway, I feel like we spent a lot of time on that, but we wanted to provide some background on our history. So that brings us,
kind of.
to separate, we're skipping a lot, but it was not easy. Neither of us were particularly happy, but didn't know really how to communicate to each other. We kind of just stood in our corners and,
Well, we did, but I
we
think-
did do lots of therapy.
Yeah, we
did.
tried. We saw lots of therapists.
Lots. If you need recommendations, we know a ton.
And
So-
we will have one on.
Oh, yes, we
probably
will.
in a couple of weeks.
Yes,
So,
we will.
yeah, so because again,
Not
we're
experts.
Not experts, giving our experience only.
Right.
So.
Okay,
we're-
so we came to a point where we both sort of decided that sadly, this was not something that we were going to be able to move forward with after trying, because we did try. Excuse me. Choking. So, excuse me, May of 2016, we decided, I'm not crying, I'm just choking. We decided to separate, or Eric and I sort of said, okay, we're moving forward with this. And then we told the kids.
Well,
With-
I mean, that's sort of the showstopper, right?
Right.
Like, it wasn't just decided to get, you're supposed to look in that camera when it's on both of us.
Okay,
You
sorry.
look in that camera.
Sorry.
When it's, so we decided we were gonna get separated, get divorced, and then it was, now we have to tell the kids. And that was
Right.
sort of a seminal moment. I know it was for me, and I think it was for you too. Like,
It
that
was.
made it real.
Well, and that was worse or just as bad as agreeing to get divorced, because we sit down in our home and we tell our kids, Eli, who I think was 10, is that right? Yeah, and we told him, and he was so upset, and
He ran
well,
out of the
yeah, and
house.
I started to cry a little bit, and he looks at Eric and says, "Why are you upset? Why aren't you crying?" And then, of course, Eric lost it. You know, we're trying to keep it together, but that's the hardest part. I mean, we were a mess, and then he ran out of the house, and Sadie was young, and I think it affected her differently, but she was young and didn't express it the same way. So that is I think agreeing to get divorced is hard, but I feel like you come to a point where you've made that decision,
Yeah.
but telling your kids is gut
We
wrenching.
we had a chance to internalize
Process.
it and process it. We're also in our 40s,
Right.
right? So we know how to deal with, hurt and, sad feelings. These are 10-year-olds who have never had to deal with anything in their whole lives. So,
Yeah.
so I think even, and the buildup to telling them,
Well, because it was a month, we had decided that we were going to tell them like after Mother's Day. So we were still sort of living as a married couple for like 3 or 4 weeks. And the thing about Eric and I is that even when things were as bad as they were, like I still liked him as a person. And as we were getting closer to separation, I was able to sort of see things differently. I can't really explain why and not play such a victim in them anymore. And so I still because a lot of people are like, how did you just live in the same house with him? It's like, well, we just did. Also, I think sometimes you get pretty good at pretending, like when you're married. So sadly, that's something.
that was a huge part.
Yeah. So we told the kids, we made a decision to nest. So for those of you who don't know what that is, our format for nesting, I guess it can vary, is the kids stay in the house and we circulate. So we rented an apartment, which was about a mile away. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. Eric was like, let's get a 1-bedroom. I was like, we're going to get a 2-bedroom. So when Eric was in the house with the kids, I would be in the apartment and vice versa. So it sounds like a good idea because initially, the kids aren't ripped from the home they never knew, but I mean, they've always known, but we did it for 9 months.
Yeah, I think conceptually, it's a really good idea.
Yes, it is,
But it needs to be time delimited.
yes, because it's really hard to leave and pack your stuff every week. Again, it's for the kids, but it was hard for me because Eric ended up staying in the house. And so I was packing up all my stuff 9 months, a year after, we had initially decided to separate. So it kind of prolonged that, at least for me.
But going back to the day, the day we told the kids, and we told them this was going to be the arrangement.
Yes, we knew ahead of time.
So we knew we had rented the apartment, and one of the things we did that I thought was really good was that, so we told the kids, we had the difficult conversation, and we said, and we can maybe for another show talk about the things we said to the kids sort of in more detail.
Yeah.
But we explained how it was going to work, and we said there's an apartment. It's across the street from the Walmart down the street, so you know where it is, and why don't we go see it? Because we show you where we're going to be. We're going to show you that we're when mom or dad's not here, we're only going to be 5 minutes away, and maybe you can help us pick out some things for the apartment. So we drove down, we showed them the apartment, we went across the street to Walmart, we let them pick some stuff out.
Yeah, and obviously if they didn't want to go, we wouldn't have obviously
Right.
made them go. We were figuring it out. We did take some advice from our therapist that maybe so it's not just this ethereal idea that it's an actual place. So that's what we did. Again, that's what worked for us. I'm sure if our kids threw a fit and were like, we're not going,
We wouldn't have made them
we
go.
probably wouldn't have made them go.
But I think going, and all four of us together, I think that was sort of the beginning of them seeing,
Yes.
maybe this isn't going to be a horrible
Right.
thing that we,
I think you're
we
right.
have in our heads. So
Yeah.
it was sort of the beginning of that.
Right. So that was hard. Separation was hard. People are like, I feel like we keep getting, I guess we'll get to this later, but, we weren't always like this. And again, we argue every other day. Well, maybe not that frequently anymore, but we still argue. But that year's separation, so we were separated in May of 2016. The divorce was final May of 2017. So it's been almost 2 years. But that separation for a year is not fun at all.
Doesn't matter. I think it doesn't matter
Doesn't
how
matter.
well you get along. Because what you're doing in that time, unless you do this this collaborative thing that some people do with success, we didn't do that. But it's dividing assets.
And everything you've saved for and planned
And
for.
bought.
And you're just drilling it down. And then you have attorneys, which no offense to attorneys.
Thank you.
No offense to family law attorneys, but sometimes, Eric had his own attorney, I had mine. I feel like we needed our own representation, but sometimes they mucked it up and would say things to each other, and then Eric and I would talk, and I'm like, that's not what I said. So I think that's another thing that sort of helped us, that we did talk through the separation, even though there were tears and feelings. We tried to figure out things on our own, because sometimes when lawyers get involved, it just makes things worse. So I think that was another sort of way for us to come together. Like, we're not trying to screw each other. I'm not trying to ask for 90% of everything. Like, everything was pretty fair. So I think that was another. So yeah, so that's kind of the background.
Yeah, you're now
Now you're up to date. But I did want to share one piece of feedback that we got, or a question, because I don't know if we're totally answering this. So maybe Ziggy, you can pull the one up about, right. So I feel like we've maybe danced around this and we've alluded to it, but it obviously took you time to get where you are, but how did you get there? So I feel like this is such a loaded question.
Well, and I think it's a hard question, sort of.
But we got this. The reason we had Ziggy pull it up is because we got this question more than once. I got it from somebody that I hadn't talked to in a really long time that I think is contemplating divorce, and he wanted to know, like, how does it get like this?
You mean how do you get to the place where you can talk to your ex-spouse?
And we're going to New York on Friday. I mean, maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, but like we spent so much time in our own corners, I'm right. Or I spent so much time playing a victim that I couldn't see the forest through the trees. But once I think we made a decision, at least for me, that was right for us, I was able to see things differently. I was able to look at Eric differently. I was able to see him for who he really was and not expect him to be somebody else. And then I was able to respect him. I can't explain why I wasn't able to do that while we were married. Would I have preferred that? Of course. This is not, nobody wishes for this, but it was a change in me, and that's how I'm able to relate.
I think this is an important point. and I tell people this all the time, it has nothing to do with us, but, you get married when you're 22,
Yes,
23,
we talked about
25,
this.
29, and you're just a different person 5 years later, 10 years later, 20. I mean, I think in an ideal world, nobody would get married before the age of
35?
35 or 40.
I know.
Because even at that point, you're not fully formed, but you're mostly formed. You're who you're going to be the rest of your life, probably at age 40. But I know at me at 28 when we got engaged, I'm not the same person, and you're not the same
No.
person. And it's great if you grow along the same path, and people who are still married after a long time did that successfully, but we didn't, and I think lots of people don't.
Yeah.
Whether they're still married or not.
Yeah.
You just grow apart.
Right.
You just grow in different ways. Not always apart. You just grow differently.
Right.
So, I think that's just a natural thing. And for me, when you ask, how did you get here? I said this in episode 1. I think you agree. It's, when you put your kids sort of at the middle of everything, and you say, if you say something to me, and I may say, well, that's ridiculous. Why would I do that? But then I think, well, but how will that affect the kids? Well, that completely changes my mindset, because for those of you who don't know me, I always think I'm right, always. And maybe a lot of people are like that. But listen, I'm a lawyer. I'm trained to, advocate for whatever position I'm taking. That's my job. And so I think, when we were married, I naturally did that.
Yes.
I would, whatever the position is, I would defend it to the death, because again, that's how I'm trained. That doesn't work in a marriage.
Right.
Right? It does not work like that. Even a good lawyer should be able to see something from somebody else's perspective.
Yeah, but when you're in it.
When you're in it, it's hard because you're in it. But being able to see something from your kid's perspective, that changes everything.
Right. I do have to add this because I did get some feedback from a very dear friend. So if one parent is advocating for the kids, but the other parent can't do it, then,
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
It's not going to work. But I will say, all you need, this is great, but if you have one parent that's advocating for you, you're going to be, the kids are going to be fine. So I do have not a lot, but I have a number of friends who have not good situations with their ex-husbands, and they are rock star moms, and their kids are going to be okay. So yes, I'm sure they wish that
They're not going to be good with their ex-spouses, but their kids could be fine.
their kids will be fine.
They'll be fine.
Will be fine.
Will be fine.
Yes. So yeah. So I hope that we sort of addressed questions. We did read all the feedback. We are going to be talking about other things in the future. We are going to have an expert on. We are going to be talking about dating. It's going to be probably a tough subject for us, but we know that's what people want to hear about. So we're going to get there. So continue to provide us comments, send us emails.
Ziggy, can you put the emails back up?
Yes.
Yeah, please continue sending those. I know we got some last week
Yes.
that I have not responded to yet, but I will.
I told him to,
Yeah,
but
I will.
so email us on our personal email address or divorcedonewell@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. We're actually on Spotify and iTunes now. It's all very exciting.
You can listen in the car.
Yes, for 28 minutes. So I think that's it.
Do you guys want to hear some of the Facebook
Yes,
feedback from
yes,
today's
yes,
show?
yes, yes.
So I've
Facebook feedback.
Yes,
Thank
I've been
you.
monitoring the feed, and Nicole Lemaire Fenwick says that she loves you guys. Winnie Hoodis says good job.
Nice. Hi, Winnie.
Karen Immerman Kasanoff says happy anniversary. It still counts as something.
That's right. Thanks, KK.
Yes, and Lisa Jenks says this is awesome. So
Nice.
people are loving you guys out
Thank
there.
you, Ziggy.
That's good feedback. And you don't have to, if there's bad feedback, you can keep that. We don't need it.
Yeah, right.
Oh, there wasn't any today, but I'll keep that in mind
we
for
call
the
it
future.
constructive.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's it. I think
Yeah.
we covered a lot today.
It's going to keep getting better. Like Stephanie said, we will have other people on, so it's not just hearing us yammering on.
Right.
Definitely a therapist, hopefully a financial person,
Right.
probably a lawyer.
Yes.
If there's anybody else you think would be, helpful to the
Yes, let
conversation.
us know.
Let us know.
And I think that's it. So we'll see you next Monday.
Thanks for
Everybody
watching.
have a great week. Thanks
and
for
listening.
watching.
Bye.